The goal of today's video is going to be shaders and Java arguments for the garbage collection routine. I'll preface this by saying this is not a tutorial or a how-to. This is just how I've done things. These are the settings that I've found on various posts on the Feed the Beast subreddit that I've tried, and I'm currently in the settings and the configuration that works the best for me. And then later on in the video, I'll show some of the other settings I tried, and you can see how the performance is worse. If you're having issues, I won't be able to help because I don't understand this stuff. But yeah, if you have any tips, please let me know. I'm going to try to sort this video into a few chapters because it's probably going to be long-winded and rambly. One important thing to take note with my current settings is I'm currently only playing a client. I'm actually on a server. I have a second computer in my house, part of a home theater system. The client performs way better if you can run the server on another machine. If you hit Shift, Alt, and F3 on the keyboard, you get this debug screen, which I'm sure you're familiar with. But the other cool thing is these bar graphs. I don't fully understand what it means, but green means go, red is bad, and yellow's in the middle. But basically, anytime you got lines that are showing way up here, that's bad. And anytime the garbage collection routine runs, you'll see this memory here. When it starts to climb, my understanding is when this value starts to climb, it'll get to a limit, and then the garbage collection routine in Java will run. And that is often when you'll get lag spikes. And then the game kind of freezes and stutters while that garbage collection's running, and then it resumes. And you will find sometimes that when you set your RAM too high, like I've got 12 gigabytes set to this client, because the memory is building even higher and higher, there's more junk to clean up. So when the garbage collection routine does run, performance can be worse. Something to keep in mind of, I don't think you need 12 gigs here. You can probably get away with 8. I just didn't notice an issue setting it to 12. I just haven't lowered it again. And you can see here's my specs. Computer's kind of getting a little outdated. In terms of mods, I had added the Rubidium mod. It's like a performance mod instead of optifine, I believe. And then if you install the Oculus mod, it works with Rubidium to give you shaders. So those are the two mods that I added to this pack. You can see here the shaders look kind of cool. Trees are blowing. Got some water. I'm not a huge fan of the crate contraption of the background glowing, or how bright I am, but I guess I usually don't see that. So me just walking around in the world, you'll see the performance isn't that bad. I'm at 50 FPS. I've gotten used to playing Minecraft at really low FPSs. You'll notice spikes when I open the inventory. Like, I've routinely played Minecraft when the FPS is like 20 or 30, so I think I've got a high threshold for dealing with garbage. But overall, just me walking around here doesn't perform too bad. There's a mod that comes with this mod pack called Spark, and if you are running a server, to see the client, you can type in C. If I type in garbage collection, you'll see there's some stats. Now, I don't really know how to interpret that, but if we just type in spark gc, this will run on the server. You can see the difference. Again, what's this say? 16 milliseconds average. What do they say in Minecraft? 20. You have 20 game ticks a second. And if you invert that 20, it's 50 milliseconds. So getting 20, can't type, getting 20 ticks per second is equivalent to getting 50 milliseconds for each tick. Like, that's what you're allocated. The game has to do everything it needs to do in a game cycle in 50 milliseconds for that one tick. And if it doesn't, if it takes longer, then you start to notice lag. And we'll see that later. I might have things that are at hundreds of milliseconds, which means it's taking 2 ticks to complete something. If you want to know more about that, the Spark mod has a very good tutorial and demonstration on their website, so check that out. Now if we set the time set to night, you'll notice there's that weird glow, but it's not so bad. And then you'll notice the chests look kind of normal. Now what's interesting, if this doesn't crash on me, I will switch from BSL shaders to complementary shaders, the ones I originally wanted to use. Well, that's cool. It changed without crashing. So all I've done is slap on a medium profile, compatibility on, just to try to fix the issues I was having, but it didn't fix, unfortunately. And I think Rubidium makes the game look like this, if you're wondering. The Rubidium mod. These are my settings for full transparency. Well, now look at that glow. Look at the chest glow. Look at the chest glow here. So what's really interesting about complementary shaders is you'll see they recommend going to flywheel. Now, the flywheel is a library that's used with Create. It makes it so the game can run all these contraptions you see in the background when you start adding more and more and more. The flywheel just optimizes it, makes the game run better. You turn it off, like I'm about to do, you lose a lot of performance boosts, so the game will actually run worse. But check out what happens to the graphics. So they don't have that weird glow anymore, neither do the chests. And then you can see the garbage collection, which is actually kind of interesting, right? Me just standing here not moving, you can see how much worse it is with flywheel renderer turned off. Spark. For my own curiosity, sparkc, nothing changed. If we type in spark client, I guess really again it didn't change much, did it? Well, that's surprising. This clearly must mean the garbage collection hasn't got worse, but in terms of my game trying to run and load all the graphical stuff, it's gotten worse. If we go fly, wheel, backend on, and turn the optimizations back on, to me that seems pretty clear what's going on. But you get that ugly glow, which is too bad. Now if we go to shaders and just disable them, which is honestly how I'm probably going to play, because I want to build a lot of complex machines. Now if we type in spark client GC, I guess nothing's really changed. I'll have to review the video footage because the graph is looking a little better. Very green, not a lot of orange. I don't know if those spikes we're seeing is the garbage collection routine. I don't know what it is, but they're pretty consistent. Time set day. So me just kind of flying around creative mode, holding the control key for, what is this, sprint or flying? It's pretty darn good. Even though all these chunks are loaded and they're on a, oh, there we go. There's some spikes. But I mean, after the game kind of loads in and you're in your area, especially in modded Minecraft, right? You're always in kind of the same area building. It performs pretty good. You'll see right away here, my other settings will be much, much worse than this. I don't even think I would turn shaders on. See, the FPS is at 60, which is kind of surprising to me. I'm going to turn VSync off. Wow. I think I just learned something there. I read about VSync, but I don't think I tested it. You can even see on that little bar graph on the bottom. It's very, very green. This probably won't matter for the garbage collection, but yeah. Oop. Not sure what that spike was about. We fly around again. That's pretty sweet. Well, the obvious thing is, if we go back to shaders, how did the BSL perform? So we got 60, 50. That's kind of what I was expecting. VSync really didn't fix that. The shaders definitely just tanked them. But I mean, it's playable, right? Especially if you wanted to make like a video or show something off, maybe you wouldn't play with them on, but if you wanted to showcase something, I guess you could turn it on. Okay, shaders disabled. We're back at 100 or so FPS. Life is good. What does the memory get to here? Memory is about 50%, and it resets. I have I don't know what the resolution of this monitor is, like a 2560 by whatever. I had heard you should turn your resolution down to 1920 by 1080. I tried that. Honestly, didn't notice that much performance boost. I might actually bump it back up to 25 by 60, or no, 2560 by whatever, because it distorts the resolution of my desktop, which I don't like on this monitor. And I don't really didn't notice the performance enhancement. Something to keep in mind that I do have the resolution set to 1920 by 1080. Apologies if I mentioned this already. This is the Create Above and Beyond Modpack, version 1.3 of the Modpack, and it's 1.16.5 version of Minecarft. See up in the top here, we're running the Java version 1.8. I kind of thought it was called Java 8, even though it says 1.8. But the update version is 202. I installed a newer version. It was 352 today. Doesn't work. Just the base game, me making no modifications, does not work. So I had to revert back to 202. Now, I don't exactly know how this works, but I'll just mention it's just, you're aware of it if you're watching this. Versions of modded Minecarft 1.12 or 1.16, they work with Java 8. If you go up to, I think, version, what is it called? Version 1.19 for Minecarft, maybe 1.18, you have to use like Java versions, what is it, 11 or 17. Just be aware, if you're having issues where the game won't even boot, you might be using the wrong JDK. And I'll try to link a description of my settings in the YouTube video and some links to where I got the files. And the server's on a cheap desktop I bought from Best Buy. It's like a 16 gigabyte machine. So the server's got this Minecarft server's got 8 gigs allocated to it. It runs fine. I'm loaded into the MultiMC right now, the profile for my Create Above and Beyond pack. These were the settings that I'd currently had set for the graphics you just saw. These are from, I'm gonna watch his name, but it's, you know what, is it right here? Aikar. They're his settings right there. I don't know if they're supposed to be used with 1.16. I think when I read his blog, which I'll link to, they were for older versions of Minecarft, but they work pretty darn good. They're the best I found. Like I said, this is the XMS setting, and this is the XMX setting. So if you are using different versions of, if you're not using MultiMC, you might have to add some extra flags to this. But the exact copy and paste is in the link that I'll link to. I just had to remove XMS and XMX because they're right here. You set them separately. I kind of wanted to lower these back down to 8 or 10 gigs, but in the interest of not sabotaging this this comparison, I'll leave them at 12 gigs, 12 times 1024. And then this is the Java installation I was talking about. This auto detect here, I've got a ton of different versions of Java installed. I've been testing around different things. But mainly this 352, this newer version, does not work. I don't think this 351 works. So I went right back to this 202 version, for version 8 of Java. And this is just the runtime environment. I think you can get by with just the JRE. I think the JDK is just a little bit bigger. It's got stuff for developers in it. But I always install a mixture of both. I don't really pay attention. And then these versions are for when I play newer versions of Minecraft. I need to have Java 17 or 11 installed. But it's a mess. Just be aware, if the game won't boot, especially when you're switching between older versions and newer versions of Minecraft, it could be something to do with that. And of course, you want to get 64-bit. I don't think anybody should be playing modern Minecraft on 32-bit anymore. I just don't think it'll work. So the other settings that are popular that I've seen are from CPW, one of the contributors or developers for Forge. So these were recommended a long time ago. An old Reddit post of his I found. Now I can already feel it that the garbage collection seems to be having an effect. Maybe just give me a minute here to walk around. Okay, I think everything's kind of loaded in now. We're not seeing as many red spikes. I'll notice the FPS seems to be a little worse. It's almost above 100. Oh, there it goes. Right as you say something, the game's like, nope, I'm gonna make you out to be a liar. It feels choppy. I don't know how to explain it, but I'll have to review the video footage to actually see the graph. It feels clunkier, and I can see on that bar graph it definitely seems to have more spikes, especially the red ones. And I think that must be due to garbage collection, because I haven't even turned on shaders, and I won't even bother turning on shaders because the base game here seems to be worse. If we do this spark GC again, 120 milliseconds average. So if I'm interpreting this right, the previous one I showed you had like 20 or 30 milliseconds average, and this is 120. So if I'm interpreting what I'm seeing right here, that this is taking like 2.5. How's that go? 2.5 ticks. Oh god, I'm trying to do math on screen here. You have got 50 milliseconds allocated for 1 tick. But this garbage collection took 2.5 times that. So that's that spike we kind of notice. And we notice it a lot because it seems to be running this garbage collection every 9 seconds on average. At the end of the video too, I'll have to bring up the Spark website just to kind of talk about that a bit, because it's kind of interesting. Something I don't know well, so definitely read up on it yourself. Don't take what I'm saying as the gospel. I believe when you just install the pack, it'll be blank. You won't have any Java args. It'll just be default settings. So we can see how that will run. You can just turn it off like that. Sometimes too, when you're testing, especially in MultiMC, you can go into notes and paste different settings. Like here's my best settings here by Aikar. So I've got them left in the notes because I'm going to paste those back in after I'm done this video. We're back in with no special arguments. Should do the same thing here. I should walk around to make sure everything's kind of loaded in. Even though I don't know if it matters. Server. So my FPS is clearly worse with no talking slowly because I'm watching for it to make me out to be a liar. Yeah, we're seeing a lot more spikes here. The FPS seems to be worse. Maybe it's not. We check the Spark client garbage collection. Yeah, see, according to this, it is worse. If I'm reading this right, instead of taking 50 milliseconds on average to do a tick. maybe it's not so much to do with the tick. It's just that it prevents the game from running. The game wants to do a tick every 50 milliseconds. So if you've got this garbage collection routine running, it's just going to interrupt that, which we perceive as lag spikes when you're kind of doing stuff. Now if we go poke our head in a few chests here, we should see the odd. That's that classic chest lag you get. Honestly, just turning VSync off seems to have made it better. That's clearly worse, right? Halved. I gotta say though, I'll have to scroll back, or I guess you'll have to scroll back if you're watching this video to the start to compare the settings for yourself. For me, they don't look as I guess standing still is one thing, right? Of course it's gonna be comparable. But when I start moving around, I feel like the spikes are worse. Like it feels jittery. Like I said though, not a how-to. Just try them, see which works better for you. I'm gonna go back to, can't pronounce his name, Aikar, whatever the settings were at the first part of the video. A long bunch of Java arguments. Here's the docs for the Spark mod. I believe the Spark mod is included with Create Above and Beyond. I don't think I added it, but it's not there. Add it. It's definitely an awesome mod, I think, to add to any pack you're playing. What's interesting though is the Spark guides. That's what I found interesting myself. I got a couple guides here. There's 3 of them. The first one is finding the cause of lag spikes. So it's not always to do with garbage collection. Sometimes it's to do with just everything else going on in the world. I didn't run a profiler, but I think I do have another video on YouTube where it talks a little bit about running the profiler. But basically, you get an output where you can drill down into the various functions going on in Java and see what's taking all the time up, to process a tick and all that. So this is not, I guess, what I want to talk about today. But the important thing to understand is 50 milliseconds is like your 100%. That's good. You want to have that. Anything, if we go down here, looks like in this guide here, they simulated using world edit to do a bunch of block modifications. Then they started having ticks that were lasting 800 milliseconds instead of 50, which you're clearly going to notice. And using these steps, you can kind of drill down and maybe find the source of your lag spikes. It's kind of interesting. You can use the profiler to only grab data on processes that are taking over, let's say, 150 milliseconds to complete, which is just cool. So the tick loop. Nearly all video games in Minecraft are driven by one big program. The execution of the server in the game is broken down into ticks. The tick is when the server gets to update and do things. Player movement, block breaking, entities, positions of stuff, network stuff like the packets between the client and the server, and then AI, mob pathing. Mob pathing is a big one. I noticed in my Enigmatica 2 Let's Play, the, what do you call it? Mobs, whatever the mod is that adds all the mobs. They add a ton more creatures in the world that have an effect on the server. If you're having bad issues, sometimes disabling that kind of stuff helps tremendously. And then redstone. Redstone, lighting updates, all that's bad. Or not bad, but it consumes. It consumes resources. So ticks in Minecraft. The server aims to run exactly 20 of these ticks a second. Or in other words, 1 tick every 50 milliseconds. Basically, if you invert 20 ticks per second, if you invert it, you get 50 milliseconds. So in 1 second of time, all of these ticks are happening. As long as they happen in the time that they need to, and they don't go over, everything's happy. Like let's say you've got a fancy contraption and it's taken 100 milliseconds to complete, the game will start lagging behind. It's fine to use less. If your game is using like on average 20 or 30 milliseconds, that is awesome, because that means there's lots of room. So if we scroll down here, we'll see an example of that. In 1 second, Here's the approximate lengths of each tick. A couple ticks were quite short, a couple were quite big, like this guy. And when it's lagging here, we'll see some big ticks, some short ones, some big ones. So they're all running back to back to back, and there's no nice breaks in there. That's not good. When you start to have something that kind of resembles this, that's not good. But yeah, definitely recommend reading this a couple times. It's very interesting. And then your TPS, your ticks per second command. Basically, they say here, how many ticks on average are being processed per second? Normal lag-free game, the magic number is 20 or 50 milliseconds. So you'll see maybe your game's running not bad, but then you get a huge lag spike because some type of update in the game's code took longer than it was supposed to. I don't know how good of a rundown that was, but definitely give it a read for yourself.